Welcome to Creative. I'm your host, Andy Baker, and this show is located at the nexus of creativity and technology. Each episode, I sit down with creatives of all kinds, artists, writers, musicians, designers, directors, you name it, to explore how artificial intelligence is shaping their creative process. How did they get started using AI tools? Where are they now in that relationship? And what do they really think about AI and creation? Let's dive in. In this conversation, Bernie Sue, an Emmy-winning writer and producer, discusses his innovative use of AI in storytelling. He shares insights on how AI tools are transforming the creative process, enhancing efficiency, and enabling writers, directors, and producers, he's all of these and more, to focus on their craft. Bernie also explores the implications of AI on the entertainment industry, the integration of various creative tools, and the importance of the artist's touch in finalizing projects. We also discuss the importance of streamlining workflows, the irreplaceable role of human creativity, and the empowerment that AI tools provide to independent artists. The conversation also touches on the disruption caused by AI, as well as the necessity for artists to embrace change and adapt to new technologies. If you're like me, when you get to the end of this conversation, you too will know a lot more about the potential of AI, and perhaps find yourself a new convert to the AI creative doctrine of better, faster, cheaper. All right, I am on here with Bernie Sue, who is using AI in a lot of amazing and fascinating ways. He is right in the thick of it. A lot of us dabble, a lot of us play, a lot of us experiment. Some of us are working it into our workflows, but this is a guy who is using it all over the place, which has made it fascinating to get to know him. So if you would do us the favor, introduce yourself, Bernie. Tell us a little bit about your background and what you're doing now.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Bernie Sue. I am by trade a writer, director, producer, and showrunner of fiction, narrative fiction shows in all formats, long form and short form. I've been doing this for over a decade. I've done many shows, especially in the short form and interactive and innovation spaces. That's what I'm most known for. I've won 3 Primetime Emmys and a Peabody for 3 different shows that I've created, and was the head writer and showrunner for. And here I am today talking to you about AI.
Right, but before we jump into the using of the tools and your journey in embracing them, one, the Emmys, I've looked over your body of work and it's fascinating. And you talked about the interactive, innovative space is, obviously that kind of goes hand in hand with somebody who embraces technology and embraces, different kinds of changes and trying to take a new approach. And your project, Artificial, involved using audience participation. Tell us a little bit about that and just that spirit of innovation that you have.
Sure. I'm using Artificial. So Artificial, for context, was a sci-fi scripted serialized drama. It was the first original narrative fiction series on Twitch. It was commissioned, was funded by them. It won them their first Emmy and their first Peabody. And one of the ethos of that show was that we were bringing the audience into the show, meaning that even though it was a sci-fi drama that was serialized, we wanted to make sure the audience was consequential to the story. And if you know Twitch as a platform, it's a live streaming platform, it's a gaming platform, there's a very, when it's working well for the streamer, there's a very vigorous chat in there. We wanted to build them into the show. So we used elements like polls, we used chat, of course. We actually built custom widgets into the show so that the audience could do things like vote or buy things or to influence the show. And in my very, very biased opinion, it is the most innovative scripted series ever to be made to date. I am challenging people to give me one that's more innovative. I'm not saying it's better. I am not saying it's better written or directed. I don't think that at all. But to me, I have not objectively, as objective as I can say this, seen or witnessed a scripted series more innovative than artificial.
So that spirit of trying to see what's possible, clearly. One of the things I'm fascinated with is the AI has been around for a while. It's sort of hit the collective consciousness in the last couple of years. But, people who sort of embrace the bleeding edge of things, it's been on your radar longer than that. So I'm curious for you, when you started becoming aware of it, seeing what it was capable of, realizing and sort of forecasting where things were going to go, and like what tools jumped out at you that you first started playing with?
That's a good question. I'm going to kind of take this from a couple angles. Through the show Artificial, the actual show itself. So the show started in 2018, I want to say, and by we didn't implement actual AI into the show until season 3, and that was when we started working with this company called LifeScore, LIFE Score. It's a music AI company. And their founder, one of their founders, just notably, is one of the founders of one of the creators of Siri. So he had part of the Siri co-founder. His name is Tom Gerber. And so for working with him, that tool set specifically was the musical score of Artificial would change based on the audience's input in chat. This is 2020.
Wow.
AI. Yeah, this is it was novel at the time. I think it's still novel, actually.
I was about to say that's novel for right now.
Yeah, it was crazy. So if the chat was being very, very, we'll just say happy or sad, as for simplicity goes, the tone would shift, the tempo would shift on the fly. And credit to them, LifeScore. You can look them up. They're a company. I don't think they're public at all, but they were great partners. We loved working with them, and they had built the system for us that was also built into the Twitch API backend, so that it would basically parse chat in the very I didn't build it, so I don't want to speak exactly how it worked, but it basically parsed chat, determined what the audience was feeling, and then shifted music that way. So that was my first exposure to a creative AI tool, I believe, where I was working with it very, very closely and with my actual work. But on a different front, on the kind of writing side, because I do think of myself as a writer first. That's why I started in this industry. This is before pandemic, so I'm trying to remember what the trigger was for this. But I was very, very confident in the TV writing, specifically TV writer industry, would be massively disrupted by AI writing, and that was coming. And I was saying this to writers it was pre-pandemic, so it was at least 2019. And maybe earlier than that. And I was telling some writer friends at some events, hey, this thing is coming. You need to be ready for a tool that can basically make all of us faster or more efficient, but by proxy, probably eliminate some jobs because of that. So around that time too, I became this was 2020. I became a strategic advisor and investor in a company called Sudowrite, SUDOWRITE. It is a AI writing platform. It uses some of the tools or uses some of the models like Claude, and I think they actually now just implemented DeepSeek. I've not looked at it, but I've heard. I may be wrong. And it, to me right now, it really feels more like a novel writing platform, as in writing novels. All right. Chapterizes, story worlds, all that stuff. I've used it in my workflows too, even though I have not written a novel with it. And I'm a strategic advisor in that. And I came into that company around 2020, I believe, and specifically because I had already kind of foresaw this wave coming. And yeah, those are my two entry points.
Interesting. So with Sudowrite, when you say it's friendly with novels, my mind immediately goes to something like Scrivener. We've always had tools that help us write. I'm curious, I haven't had a chance to play with Sudowrite. In what ways does it help and guide a writer? Is it a good sounding board? Is it helpful in organizing your thoughts? Is it doing some sort of drafting based on ideas?
I would say yes to all those things. So, but I think comparing it to say something like, okay, well, and now it's a little salesy here, but this is just my observation, right, of the platform. And again, I'm biasly and
Yeah.
an advisor and investor in this, right? So when I look at Sudowrite specifically, when you have, say, a passage, 2,000 words a passage, right? And if you did that and you're working with ChatGPT on that, for example, it'd be really hard to get specific. You say like, hey, at this part, I want to change this to do this with it. It's really clunky in that scenario. In Sudowrite, it's really easy. You can highlight, for example, a passage. You can highlight a character and say, do something to that. Make this passage more dramatic. Give me a background on this character. Make this sentence more specific. Okay. And again, you can just drag your mouse and highlight the damn thing. So I find that to be really, really like freeing, right? Yeah. Versus just going, wait, so what did I do like 3 prompts ago? And like, so it's very efficient in that sense. Now, again, I've not gone end to end, say, start a novel, go all the way to the end. But if you were to look at the platform, you would see a lot of different things that help you through the process. And that's, I think, one of the key things for a lot of these tools is that we as artists, there's no one button good scenario. It's like you don't push a button and come up with a script, like a full 120-page screenplay. It's just like you're not going to get good quality there. And just like any other, I know very few writers that can just start writing script without outlining and planning, So just like that, this platform does that too. So it's not just, hey, what do you want to write on page 1? It's like, who are your characters? Who is the story? What's the tone? Build all that into a system and then start going. Now you're on chapter 1. Now you're on chapter 2, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, I'm really happy with them. I have not spoken specifically to them in a little bit, but I check in with them every year or so, I'd say, and it's like really. And I use the product too. So,
I mean, it's interesting. Particularly in something, and I've tried to tackle novels, but I always return back to screenplays. There are these obstacles that you encounter, and it can just seem like it slips out of my fingers. And it sounds like this is the kind of tool that removes those obstacles. And in the end, that's what some of the tools are for. That. There is this, in the act of creation, it can often feel hard, right? And sometimes it can, when you use some tools, that it can feel easy. And I mean, I liken it, different tools, different jobs. But I remember the first time I started playing around with Final Draft, and I was like, I don't have to play with macros anymore. Fuck yeah, this is so incredibly helpful. And then, but like now
we're old.
Yeah. Yes, we are old. But it's like, and I imagine the people who had to do it on typewriters before, like, good Lord, I feel sorry for them.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, I think I was in school somewhere at some level, but when Premiere 1 came out, right? So it's like, before that we were doing tape to tape editing, right?
Oh yeah.
And so I was in that transition, and I was like, you know what, screw this. Like, they were teaching me tape to tape editing. Like, screw this. I'm just going to use Premiere because this is way faster.
Yeah, well, it's like back in the day, walking into a room and there's an Avid machine. And it was like the choiring of angels, like, oh my gosh, nonlinear editing. Like now everyone has a laptop and they have an Avid. So, but again, that's part of the discussion here is about, these are tools that are powerful, growing more and more powerful. Certainly people are generating material with either the help of AI. Some people try to use it entirely so. Obviously, you can tell the difference. But it sounds like with Sudowrite, you can have this precision scalpel where it's like you go right down to the text, highlight something, and then can generate some ideas. And that's fascinating. That's a powerful tool.
Yeah, I would say if you wanted to speed run a novel and not just like write prose and from page 1, but like through planning and all like we'll say quote unquote air quoting proper steps. I'll say because all due respect to the National Writing Month people who just go.
Okay, I was about to say like this is the tool for NaNoWriMo.
Yeah, I'm actually really curious now. Like if I had a free November, I would just do it. But my observation of the tool is that you can speed run a novel end to end, but you're a part of that process. You're not pushing a button and outputting a novel. You're procedurally going through everything, line by line or page by page or chapter by chapter or whatever. So
All right. So what other tools, because one of the things that makes you fascinating is, so you see yourself as a writer, but you're also a producer, directing, you're involved with the music. And so you're bringing all of these different pieces together. So you're aware of a wider family of tools and trying to figure out how they integrate well with each other. How has that journey gone? Like, you start playing with tools and you start adding tools, and it's just like, okay, how am I'm the fulcrum. I'm at the center of all of this. What tools are you using, and how do you piece it all together?
Well, I can tell you, Andy, that I spend hundreds of dollars a month on frickin' AI SaaS tools right now. Hundreds of dollars a month.
Join the club, man.
And I'm cycling stuff out too. I'm like trying to actively cycle stuff out. Like, okay, I don't need this for now, and I can always re-up for it when the thing comes up with a new model. And like, I gotta get better at that per se, and not just like accrue SaaS fees every month. Yeah, I actually think right now it's definitely one of my biggest expenses. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm spending more on SaaS tools than I am on food. I'm a pretty frugal food guy, right? So anyway, but yeah, so I would say this to kind of your observation, as someone who kind of who's kind of involved in every part of the creation process, say in a TV show or a film or something like that, writing, producing, directing, etc. It's AI in everything. Like, I can use anything. I can use a lot of tools at different stages. I was having this realization the other day, because my entire career, I've mostly been like, I guess the analogy, the fulcrum, the keystone, whatever. Okay. Like, everything runs through me, right? For better, for worse. I'm not saying it's good. Okay. I'm just saying that's what it is. Okay. Yeah. Been the head writer, been the director of the show, et cetera, et cetera. So everything runs through me. And to anybody who like makes their own film or makes their own web series, that's what this is. Okay. You're the person, you're the guy. Okay. And when you're the guy and you're the person, whatever, your hands are in everything, and you kind of know a little bit about each of the steps. Like, you're not the best sound designer, you're not the best editor, but you're kind of involved in those things. And you may have to edit or sound design for necessity, because no one else can't afford it or whatever. You have resources. If you're an indie filmmaker, for example, or an indie game developer, whatever, you're kind of doing everything yourself, right? Well, the amount of tools out there that can get you a huge percentage of the way to quality out there through AI is enormous. Like, everything, there's a tool. Is it good? Like, that's for you to judge. Okay, that's for you to judge. I'm not saying you should use them all. I'm saying someone has attempted to build the thing, okay? And whether or not that is the thing you should use is up to your own research and development, right? Just like some people some people use Canva over Adobe, for example. Like, it's the same idea, right? So that's up to you. And in what I found to be a boon as someone who's been continually that fulcrum, that keystone for his career, it's amazing, because now I can just run forward and develop and develop and develop. And I'm not saying that I want to cut people out, right? Like, I'm very, very deliberate on this. Like, I'm not saying I want to kill all those jobs. What I'm saying is that I can just develop and tinker and mess around and go really far into the process without having to like burn a bunch of resources or call a bunch of favors or, waste people's time. Like, oh, hey, do this thing with me. Do me a favor, do this thing with me for like a couple of days. And it's all right, like, it's just my personal thing. And I do it, and I think, it's stupid. Let's forget about it, right? So then I may have burned a favor. Maybe I didn't. I've definitely used someone else's time, okay? Or I've compensated that person with them, then I've burned a resource, okay? Just calling a spade, like saying what it is, right? And, when you're doing these projects, especially on indie, in the indie level, you have to be very, very cognizant of your resources. You're not just like dishing like dollars and like time all around. So having all together allows me to go really, really far, really, really fast when it's working well. And so, yeah, I love it. I did not answer your question with tools I'm using, but it is like all of them. So
yeah, no, that is the answer. And you said a couple of things that are very fascinating. One, you talk about how the tools get you a huge percentage of the way. Right.
Yes.
That the tools aren't perfect. And, this is a bad comparison, but I'll make it anyway. It's the equivalent of, being UPS or some other shipper. They always talk about it's the last mile. that is the hardest, that's sort of defining. And in the creative realm, it's like, okay, there's, sort of the lion's share of there's heavy lifting, and then that refining process, that the rest, sort of delivering the rest of the way requires perhaps a little more nuance, a little more. It's the most challenging part, getting the rest of the way.
For sure.
The tools get you as far as they can, and depending on how good they are, they'll get you a different percentage of the way there. But like you said, and this touches on something else really important, you said that someone is creating the thing. Whatever, these parts of the creative process that are a hitch or involve labor, involve some resource, someone out there is creating a tool. And other people are iterating off of that tool. The tools are getting better and allowing you, and this is something we've talked about before, but that mantra of speed, efficiency, and cost. And I would love to hear a little more about like how those qualities, those aspects of the production process have been improved using these tools.
Yeah, for sure. So going to the listeners, okay. So I want to caveat this that this may sound very numbers and statistics, okay. And you're an artist, Andy. I'm guessing a lot of the listeners are going to be artists. A lot of listeners are going to be happy about what I'm going to say here, especially if they're anti-AI. If they're anti-AI, I don't know why they're listening to this podcast, but okay, it's okay.
No, we're exploring all aspects.
That's okay. But just think about procedurally. Okay, don't take the AI out of it. If you have a task, any task, it could be anything, and the task upon completion is 100% using the kind of comparison. And there's a tool or a series of things out there that can get you 50% of the way there at incredible speed, cost, or efficiency, or all three, right? So like in the kitchen, it's like a food processor, for example, okay, or a blender, right? An incredibly efficient tool that does something really, really quickly. Now, this is not an apples-to-apples comparison, obviously, but just think about that mindset. So then as an artist, when you're constructing something really complicated, like a movie, a video game, TV show, or heck, even a script, okay, which is pretty complicated still, even though it's one medium, right? A YouTube video is pretty complicated. If you can take pieces of that process and make it more efficient, drive the resources down, then you can make more of that thing, okay, or make it better, right? So obviously the tool isn't perfect, right? And the tool is not going to get you 100%. It just doesn't, okay? And I don't think, maybe it will get there, but your analogy of the UPS thing or Amazon, that last mile, that's perfect. That's a great analogy, because that last 10% of anything, even before AI, is that difference between what makes it good to great, right? Like imagine, I'm sure a lot of people who listen to this, using the Amazon analogy again, use Amazon, like Prime or shipping, right? Imagine if they took away that last mile solution, which is a really complicated thing, right? It's like drivers and timings, and really, it's just like that infrastructure is crazy. Imagine that thing was not quite as good, meaning they only had lockers. Like everything had to go to the locker, right? And the frustration for you as a user experience would be, God, I gotta go freaking down the street to my whatever, Whole Foods and get my thing. Like that last percent, that's the special that makes it special. That last 10% in this process is you as the artist. Like you are a great artist. You're a great artist too, Andy, but like you as a figure in the audience, you are that last 20, 10%, 15%, 30%. I don't know. It's probably a big percentage actually. It's probably larger than 10. But you are that last percentage. You are what makes it great. And so even again, before AI, before all this stuff was there, just like I think about like my experiences with for example, my experiences with my Emmy-winning shows. Okay, they all won, right? Those three won. Okay, was it just because we did it that made it one? No, it was that last like drive of effort and energy and like ambition and all that takes what was a YouTube show or a Twitch show and takes it up that 20%, 15% notch to make it worthy of winning. Okay. And so that's what I'm trying to instill on people who ask me about this. They're like, when they go like, what, you're using all the tools and blah, 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 or whatever it is, right? I'm just trying to get faster and more efficient, because that's what I think inspires art, right? I don't want to spend a bunch of time in administration and like deal making and these kind of rudimentary processes. VFX people do not want to spend their time rotoscoping. That is not a good use of their time, right? Yeah. So, that's what I mean by this. And so in any of the processes in this, if you can take your whatever you did before and you can get 80% of the way there using just rough numbers at 50% of the costs, okay, you're being innovative. That's like, to me, the definition of innovative in any industry. Fast fashion, cars, food, okay? Like, if you're doing that, then you are being innovative. And with AI, that 50% is probably not 50%. It's probably like really low. It's probably like 10%. It's like driving that cost way down. And you're probably not getting 80% of the way there. You're probably getting like 50% of the way there. But still, the analogy still fits. And that's why I think it's so transformative in this. And so, slight tangent, a friend of mine was asking me, hey, what have you been doing the last 2 weeks? And like, I haven't heard from you. You haven't been on social media, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, dude, I'm just working on tools every day and workflows and systems because I'm just trying to get faster and more efficient. And that's how I'm spending my time.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you've been focusing on integrating tools into the workflows. You may not be able to talk about the project you're working on right now, but I'm curious about in the here and the now, in this moment, what tools are you integrating, or what systems are you trying to improve? Like, what has come down the pipe that you now say, like, okay, I need to go in there and look at my systems because now's the time. The tools are there. The opportunity is there to improve speed, efficiency, cost, whatever it is.
Sure, I'll give you a past example actually. That still works. And I did this. So I directed 2 commercials over the last, call it, year, right? One was for New York Life and one was for Olay, the beauty brand. And there's a process when you're directing commercials to like, hey, here's the shots, and we got to generate the shots, and we got to storyboard them, right? And so there is. You're like, okay, well, let's fill the storyboard out. And the very common thing we hear right now is like we can use these image generators to generate storyboards one by one. True. And I encourage you to do it. It's way better than going and digging up stock images. It's like way better. You can get something more consistent. You can get the person's proper ethnicity, proper gender, like all this stuff you can put into those prompts. Okay. So the first time I did this years ago, I would do one by one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. So then this time I was like, all right, can I speed this up? Do I have to like one by one this? Okay. Like, can I pump in a list and then have it generate all of them? Okay. And see what comes out. Mm-hmm. And most likely, most of them are probably not going to be the final one. And they weren't. But it sure saved a bunch of time, right? Where I could go like, okay, that's close. All right. And if you say, hey, like the crap isn't useful, I say this to every artist out there. More often than not, you have to be shown the negative to see the positive. You don't know what you want until you see a thing you definitely don't want. And this goes for artists and like development executives and like anything of all facets, right? I don't know what I want, but definitely not that. and then you can iterate from there, because sometimes you go, definitely not that. But, oh, wait. But instead, this is like 5% of the way there, and I think I know how to get to the other 95, and then I can just go do that, right? So kind of going to now actually answer your question of like, when I say workflows, I'm thinking about processes. So each tool typically does one thing. So like example, Midjourney does images. Mm-hmm. For example, okay, if you're using that, Runway does video. Right. But I know Runway can do images, and I'm sure Midjourney, by the time this thing airs, may drop a video thing. Just right? Yeah. Who knows? Stuff changes so fast. What is a frustrating process for me in the early stages of AI was this, like, let's go to 1 billion websites. Let's go to like 5 websites and have to move stuff across 5 websites one by one. And that was really, really annoying to me. And so what I've been kind of figuring out how to do is to connect them all together. This is going to sound really nerdy. Connect them all together through APIs so that I can kind of like organize everything together in one like central spreadsheet and say, go do these things. Okay. Yeah. All right?
Yeah.
Generate these images, generate this prompt, generate this text. Okay, like just go and then bring them. And after you do that, bring the image back here and bring the image thing here. So then when you're doing that, it's definitely more like a producer mind, right?
Yeah.
Where you're saying like, okay, we need to go do this thing. Hey, team that does that thing, go do that. Okay, bring it back to me. And then when you're done, great, approved. Now go over here and now let's do this with it. So because that's what at least my work in like storytelling, it's a lot of things that are put together. It's scripts, imagery, then video, it's sound, it's music. It's not one button.
Yeah.
It's a get all. It's like all these things have to come together. And so when I look at my workflows, I look at, okay, how can I put this all and connect them to one central place? Just like a regular production would.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me is how this goes. I mean, some of the tools are great and whatever. Like the common question I get is like for video generation, for example, because I'm a video guy. They're like, oh, what video generator is the one you think is the best? And I go, well, right now it's probably this in my opinion. But if you ask me again next week, I don't know. Okay.
Yeah. Well, since the last time we talked, like 3 different new video tools came out, and one is really good at deep fakes and another one's really good at some movement. And it's like, okay, it just keeps changing. But you touch on something that I think I've been thinking about a lot lately, where like single tools can be powerful. People talk about single pieces of a production, like, okay, this could be really powerful at writing a script. This could be really a powerful video tool. This music generator is getting better. But one of my pet theories is that, it's kind of like the advice you gave those writer friends, like work your way up the ladder so that you're safe from the rising tides. It's that like really truly having artistic skill means that you can take it that last mile. You can take it that last 10%, and the tool won't catch up, but it may consume a certain percentage of the work. But that someone like you, who's at the heart of all of these different pieces, like as far as I've seen, like you're trying to jam all the tools together in the spreadsheet, but it can't replicate yet. And I haven't seen a lot of tools trying, because they're just trying to, the disparate pieces they're trying to capture, but that pulling all of the pieces together to create a piece of art, to create feeling in an audience, to bring music and sound and video and story all into one place to evoke feeling. And that I think when people throw around like, that AI is going to be capable of this, I sometimes think, can it do all of that? Are you sure that, because there's so much humanity and all of those different pieces, and at the heart of it all, bringing all those pieces together and knowing on an empathetic level what will resonate. Can there be enough material generated and can the large language models, like Sam Altman was talking about ChatGPT 5.0 and what it might be capable of, and that it'll be smarter than anybody. But smart isn't necessarily artistic. I'm kind of curious what your opinion is at your spot, being the cornerstone or the fulcrum, everything flows through you. Could you ever be plucked out of the equation?
I guess maybe it's hopeful that I can't.
Yeah.
I think it depends on what you're trying to make. So if you're in content like I am, I mean, technically, with video games too, it's partially content, right?
Yeah.
Because you're building an experience for people to consume. So there's different levels of that content. So if you're saying, can I AI generate, Horizon Zero Dawn or Last of Us 2 or Oppenheimer with a button at some point, I would say highly, highly unlikely. I still think you're going to need to have a bunch of human elements in there, probably more than just Christopher Nolan by himself. But like, you're still going to need, like you say, that humanity to touch everything when it comes back, right? Sure, AI can generate the shot, okay, but a human will come in and go like, okay, this is good, it's not quite good enough, and I need to make it better, okay. So that thus humanity touched you, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're generating content that just be filler content, like just random imagery of attractive ladies on Instagram, for example, the AI influencer world, for example, or you're trying to generate at least some simple games like skin versions of Pong, right? As a game, then sure, I could probably do that pretty well. So I think the complexity of the content is what's going to keep humanity in there. One of the analogies I used in my writer friends, this is back in, again, 18 and 19, I still use the same analogy, is that if you have a procedural, like a cop show production company, like a Dick Wolf Productions,
yeah,
where the thing they're making is very, very formulaic. Okay, well, when you put in models into language models into that thing, that can make that whole system way more efficient. And if done correctly, it means that you probably will not need as big a writing teams as they have, right? And I was telling these writers back in 18. Okay, just to be clear, right? And I just call a spade because I'm just like, if I'm just hired as a position, I don't want this job, but if my job is to be, hey, let's revolutionize a Dick Wolf Productions or whatever, okay, I'm like, great, let's have an internal model, let's feed it all, let's have it train on all the stuff that we've been doing for freaking 30 years, right? Okay, just like any other company would do with anything, and let's be more efficient, and let's give that tool to our writers, our lead writers, okay? And so you still have those lead writers, and the public still have other writers with them too, because they have to turn out these scripts and everything like that. You just need less of them. And I think that's an inevitability. Like this concept that every writer room, I'm not saying this is the way it is. I haven't read the new MBA from the Writers Guild or whatever it is, the minimums, but it's like, if a writer room for a procedural show, hypothetically, is 12, all right, to churn out 24 episodes a year, I don't think you need 12 anymore. I just you don't need 12. 12 people is a lot to manage for any manager anyway. It's more efficient to not have 12, right? And if you're like, oh, you want to get into the weeds of like you're using salaries, well, you pay the writers more. And by the way, any writer who gets a credit on something gonna get paid more. Yep. So if less writers get more credits, those writers get paid more by definition. So it's a disruption, okay? It's not this innovation creates disruption and disrupts the status quo. It does change the status quo. But that's where we are. We've been disrupted a lot in the last couple of years for many things. So
yeah,
you can blame AI for a lot of things, sure, but I don't think we've seen the true fallout of AI yet, right? I just think we're seeing fallout from overproduction and pandemic, right, and all that stuff. That's what I'm seeing. Where the fallout industry is where we are right now. The next part's coming, and it's going to be fascinating. I'll just say that. Fascinating.
Yeah, no, I mean, as much as, I have I'm working in video games right now, and it's going through turbulence. Obviously, TV and film have been going through that. And there was the strike, and it was very telling that the studios were pushing very hard on the AI front and that the writers were pushing back in that. And part of it was exactly what you're talking about. Size of staff. How many people do you need? And you can see, like, people take their public postures, but if you read between the lines, it had everything to do with, we know how efficient it's going to be. Not that it is now, but the tools are only going to get better, and you're just not going to need as many people. And we may not like it, but that's just the way things are headed. I think people are afraid of the changing of the status quo, like you said, but it is disruptive. But the thing is, we're already living with it. We were talking about when you are going through the process of writing something and getting notes. People who write for Netflix, they already are getting notes that are in part generated by the algorithm, where the execs are saying, like, okay, you need to speed up the action because, our audiences expect in this kind of movie, in this genre, we need action on screen by minute 12, and it doesn't happen until minute 15, cut 3 pages. And that was happening in 2018, 2019. Like the ability to just sort of break things down a little bit and use data to do so. Streaming has made that possible, but AI is just going to accelerate that, if you ask me.
I completely agree.
Sorry, I'm supposed to be asking questions, and there I am going on a rant.
But it's a good rant. I understand. It's like when you have audiences drop. I mean, like, this is not new. They were like, hey, we want the commercial back in like 90s sitcoms. We need the commercial earlier so we can get them before they turn away later, right? They want that first commercial up front. So that's like okay, it makes sense. I mean, sure. When I hear that as an edict, all right, and like commercials pay the bills. Okay, at that time, so I understand. And it's the same thing with modern YouTube, where they talk about doing hooks in the beginning. It's like in this video, blah 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 blah, and it's like, did you know that? Yeah, it's like I completely understand that, and that's through data telling you that thing. And if an AI can give you more advanced data, data is not perfect, but if it can give you the data faster, then great, awesome. And one of the things I want to go back to the people who, because I remember I would give a version of this talk a few months ago. I was talking to a bunch of indie filmmakers, and he got really upset at me. I won't say not really upset. They were. I'll say they were clearly upset. They didn't get any like violence or anything like that. And I was just like, I came out of that meeting. I came out that presentation. I was like, okay, I kind of wanted to change the way I spoke, and my tack was probably a little off. But I would say this: it's like, if you're an indie, you are more powered today than you ever have been. You have so much power because of the tools. So much power. It's like, oh my goodness. It's like, and so if you're an independent artist, it's like crazy right now. I think it's amazing. And if you're in this like, oh, it's all crappy and bad mindset, it's like, I think you need to recalibrate, because you are so armed today with tools that cover weaknesses better than anything before for you, if you're trying to do everything yourself. Okay. And that's incredible. That's an incredible time to be in. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I wanted to shout hallelujah while you were saying that, because I wrote down literally just before you started saying that, focusing on what do we get versus what is lost. And it's like, okay, so writer's room size changes. That that you don't need as many people on a visual effects team or as many people involved in a production. Okay, everybody these tools, they liberate our ability to create. With a small team or even yourself, you can develop a story. You can film it. Like the ability to just go and make a comic book right now. There are tools online to be able to have character consistency between shots. It's obviously easier with the static image, and you can create your own IP.
Yeah.
You see these, there are film festivals that are popping up all over the place where it's, you have to use AI as a tool. Have to, which is so fascinating, where we've gone from no AI to like, here's a festival. It's got to be 50% generated by AI. But it's like, and the list of people in the credits as they roll by is so short. But that's so empowering. Like you said, it's changing things in a way where, even just having, I liken it to back in the day when I was studying film and shooting film on 16 millimeter, where I had to physically cut it and I had to change the film in a black bag so nothing got exposed. And then iPhones, like, okay, you can shoot something that looks professional grade, certainly better than the stuff that I was shooting. And now you not only can shoot that, they went to the fact, like my son could edit videos on his laptop, and now he can generate special effects, he can generate music, he can generate sound, and put something together with a small team of teenagers. And you look at it and you're like, damn. And you put those tools in the hands of professionals like you, and it's like, yeah, damn. Yeah, I can make something really freaking good with a small team. It costs less. I can do it faster. And why shouldn't the ability to generate more creative product, as opposed to what you've lost in the sense of like, you're taking away jobs, create your own.
Yeah, true. Accurate. I love it. I think one of the things that I'm curious to sense, I've been in the industry for over a decade. You've clearly been in it over a decade and more. I always thought our industries was a very privileged industry, meaning that you had to be privileged to be able to get into it, because it's like, you're not making big money at the top. It's not like you're an accountant. You're guaranteed a living wage practically coming out of school, that type of thing. You're pretty much not. You're guaranteed not a living wage coming out of school, pretty much. And you have to struggle, and you whether you are independently wealthy, you have support from family, or everything. Or there are people who like claw and climb their way up, and props to them, amazing. But that's a very small minority. It's not the way to do that. Like if you're trying to reach down and pull your parents out of poverty, for example, if you're out of poverty, you're probably not coming into our industry day one.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And so to discover a great artist, you need to be privileged. At least previously, you had to be privileged in some way. And I find that with these tools, especially I'm kind of meeting these other artists, and it's a small sample for me, but like meeting artists across the world and places that I just never thought there was a hub for this, or not even, oh, this person exists. He's just, I'm in Utah, or I'm in Berlin, or I'm in whatever, right? And I find that to be really inspiring. Like, that's awesome. I mean, that's good. I mean, it may not be good in the sense that you have more competition now if you're coming in, if you are privileged, but I do think it's good to be able to discover a great artist, because what's in their brain is just like, one of one, right? Like, yeah, it's like when the great directors that we have right now. I remember this guy saw the trailer the other day for Mickey 17 for Bong Joon-ho, who did Parasite and all that, and I'm like, I love this guy's movies. Like, they're so, like, the way, not just, I know he doesn't come up with them all by himself, but like, they're just so different. Like, everything's so different. And yeah, like, sure, he went through, I don't know his background, so, but just like to get more of those, of like really just avant-garde, different artists, unique artists out there, be able to come out and be discovered through, because now more people have access to the things. I think it's a good thing. So
yeah, no, I agree. When I think about that, I think about Kurt Vonnegut talked about when he would travel around and do readings and book signings, and he would meet with local writers groups and share some wisdom, read some of their stuff, or hear them read some of their stuff. And he was being interviewed, and he said, you would be surprised. There is so much talent out there. Because the interviewer thought, like, you're reading all of this garbage that people are writing, and you're so patient and kind to, give them some advice and whatnot. And he was just like, I got lucky that people liked my stuff, and I found an audience. There's so much talent out there. And he talked about feeling that the system needed to find a better way to find those voices. But tools like this, artificial intelligence, it's democratizing creativity. More people have access to tools, not everybody, but the ability to put something together and express your voice and potentially find an audience, it's unparalleled. And I am hopeful. I have, like anybody with AI, I have my worries about, A, how corporations might want to use it, B, how fast it's getting, how powerful, and wanting the human touch to stay. But like you said, there are people, I think this is going to put a primacy on those unique voices. Like generic, you're going to have systems that can create a lot of generic material, but I'll be curious. For me, everyone has their litmus test. There's the Turing test and the last assessment of humanity, or whatever that AI test is. For me, it's if you tell me that AI has written something and is unique and awesome as Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, then it's over, because I don't think that's going to happen. But if it created something that way where we watched it, we had no idea AI was involved, and we were like, damn it, that was a powerfully creative human who did that, and it's not, then it's over. But I don't think it's going to get there. And that's perhaps I'll look back at this in 5 years and feel that I'm horribly naive. Yeah, because you're right. The next 2 years, man, it's going to get crazy.
I guess it's like, we talked about this in our pre-call, but like I made this kind of content analogy with buckets, right? Mm. It's like, there's content that's trying to be, we'll call it legacy, like Eternal Sunshine, movie that came out 25 years ago, whatever it was. We still talk about it. We still revere it as an all-time great, right? And then there's like 50 Hallmark holiday movies a year.
Yes, there are.
There's 500 minutes of YouTube videos being uploaded every minute. Okay, like, not knocking Hallmark holiday movies. They're just a lot of them, right? I think we can all say that. Okay, and it's like the system's getting really good at crunching those systems where you don't need, the higher whatever, as many people to do 50 holiday movies a year. I think that's very real. I think that's coming. And that's a disruption, right? Because I know that affects a lot of jobs. I know it affects a lot of people who work on those movies every year, right? And maybe that one's, you said specific on that one, maybe that one's more there's a bigger moat because those play to usually an older audience, right? Mm-hmm. And so they're just like they like that kind of, that home feel of it that may be hard to replicate or to emulate. But I also go to that and I go, those movies are already like super cheap to make anyway. Like they're one of the cheapest movies to make in like the system. They're like always under $500,000, and all that stuff. So that's why they can make so many of them versus a $200 million Marvel movie. Yeah. So I do think that we're going to see that disruption here, where if I'm Hallmark Studios, I'd be like, yeah, day one, how can we AI this thing? How can we make this thing more efficient? Don't hire me. You told me, give me a job to do. This is not my mind works. My brain goes to like these like systems of like, how can I make this stuff faster, more efficient? Right. And like, we're taught as artists, like, the whole fast, cheap, good thing, right? You only have 2 out of 3. It's like, but what if you could get like almost that third one?
Yeah, get close enough.
Close. I was like, then it's good. Lizzie Dyers was fast, cheap, and good. Like, and that won an Emmy. So
yeah. There you go. Well, so as we wrap this up, I could talk to you for hours. Just if you have one thing that you would want to strongly convey to the people listening to this, because the audience is a mix of techno-optimists, people who are worried, people who are trying to use tools, embrace tools, find out how that they can help them. What's a bit of advice that you have for them, or a message you want to convey to them about where AI is now, where it's headed, and what they can walk away thinking about and telling people about, like, okay, this is the lesson that I pulled from this? Sure.
I'm going to do 2. Okay.
Good.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So the first one I go is that, okay, if you're in the kind of that fear zone of whatever area, okay, and you're really, really worried about it, I would ask you to do one of 2 things. One, you either, all right, if you're really worried about it, become that. Like, become a legislator, or maybe you are a legislator, or become a lawyer, right? And go fight for it. Like, go really, don't just like, bullhorn tweet on Instagram about it. Like, go make a difference. Like, go there and go like get the damn thing regulated. Be part of that process. If you're really passionate about that area. But for the 99% of you who are not regulators or lawyers in the AI space, okay, you should just forget about it. You're like, yeah, be concerned. Okay, it's okay. All right, you can be opinionated and all that stuff. But this thing is here. It's inevitable. It's here. Like, embrace it. You are not that. So in that mindset, you should just be embracing it, the tools. Like, learn the tools. The tools are going to stay. They'll evolve. They'll change, but they're here, right? And my example of this is that there was a ruling. People were so afraid of copyright for a while, right? And we were like, what are you doing about copyright? Like, people were asking me this. Like, I don't care about copyright. And they're like, what? You're not care about copyright? What if you make something, blah, 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 blah? And like, they're going to figure it out. Like, that's not my job, okay? I'm going to go learn the tools. I'm probably not going to make anything worth copywriting anyway until a while, right? It takes a lot a lot of things to make it worth copywriting, right? Mm-hmm. For one, and that process. So it's going to be a while for me anyway. I'm just going to learn the tools, and look what happened. They ruled on it, and now you got a ruling, and they'll evolve, okay? Maybe the thing will change, laws change, okay, cool. My mindset was, I'm not going to be involved with this. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a legislator. If that's what you want to do, go right ahead, okay? Knock yourself out, right? And number 2 is the thing I said earlier, is like, if you're independent, right? If you're an artist, okay, in anything, you are more empowered now in the history of art than you ever have been with the AI tools. You are more empowered. You have so many resources now at a fraction of the cost as before. Maybe you don't like it, but that's where we are. So as an artist, if you want to continue being an artist, I highly recommend that you use the tools. If you don't use the tools and you kick ass and you don't use them and you're still an awesome artist, congratulations, you're awesome. Okay, great. And I would say to you, learn the tools. You are more empowered as an independent artist right now with the AI workflows and tools than you've ever been, especially if you're doing something complicated, really complicated in formats like movies or TV shows or comics or anything like that. You've ever been. So if you're independent, use the tools. Be more efficient, be faster, and get better.
Perfect. That is a great place to end because you are 100% right. I believe that once you get over whatever fear there might be and you start using the tools, like any good artist, you start to see the possibilities. And if fear keeps you from playing with them, then you're just you're keeping yourself from seeing what you can make now. And you have to overcome that. You have to fight the war of art and just embrace it and see where it can take you.
I'm with you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. People are going to get a lot out of this. Maybe in a couple of years we'll do this again and we'll see where we're right, see where we're wrong, and see what's happened in the world.
The world ended. We're doing this from like our bunkers and
yes, it's Terminator is going to be coming for us because once they get the robotics and the AI in there, then James Cameron was right. He was right all along. All right. Be well, my friend.
All right. Thank you.